Joan Salter is a Holocaust survivor, and this week she challenged the Home Secretary Suella Braverman on the dehumanising language that the Home Secretary used. Let's just listen to the clip, but then I'm joined by the brilliant Joan Salter to talk about what she said.
I am a child survivor of the Holocaust. In 1943, I was forced to flee my birthplace in Belgium, went across war-torn Europe and dangerous seas until I finally was able to come to the UK in 1947. Now, when I hear you using words against refugees like swarms and an invasion, I am reminded of the language used to dehumanize and justify the murder of my family and millions others. Why do you find the need to use that kind of language?
I won't apologise for the language that I used to demonstrate the scale of the problem. That we mustn't shy away from saying there is a problem. I will not shy away from saying we have a problem with people exploiting that generosity, breaking our rules and undermining our system.
Do you know, just talk through your reaction to Suella Braverman's response?
First of all, can I clarify? I am an educator. I do not see myself as a political activist. I have friends on all sides of the political divide, but I do feel very strongly about this language of hate to create divisions between people and where it can lead to. And that was what I said to. I was very careful in my question, and that was what it was. And actually, I did start by congratulating her. She'd given an hour's talk outlining her role and her attitudes. And it might not be my attitudes, but she was a very clear, good speaker, and I congratulated her on that. However, I was really amazed that she still stood up and said, I will not apologize for these words, because I made clear the relevance of those words and where it can lead to, because all genocides do not start on the killing fields or the camps. They start with words to divide people. And that is exactly what I felt she was doing. So, interesting enough, the Home Office contacted Freedom from Torture and demanded they take down the video because they said it was edited. Yes, it was edited because she didn't reply to my question immediately, because obviously the clogs went on in her head. How was she going to reply? And she took other questions in between, which she was able to go on to her feelings about immigration. And then she finished with quite a long answer. Now, they had only replied her first reply that she refuses to apologize. However, after the Home Office put pressure on FFT, and FFT had to get their lawyers involved, they put the whole answer on, which quite honestly shot the woman in the foot, because it really showed her attitudes. And as far as I'm concerned, the Home Office is supposed to be neutral. They are not supposed to be giving a face for the individual, because she is speaking as a conservative. And I'll be quite honest, I'm quite happy now to be a political activist. It is terrifying. Do they not realize we are a democracy? That I had registered my name It was up to them to check. If they had Googled me, they would have heard my speaking. I am not a member of any political party. I did not speak as a political activist. I spoke about the dangers of using language. And thank you for allowing me to make that comment. Because,
Well,
yeah.
Well, and very eloquently put, as you were so eloquent in that clip as well. I mean, just in terms of just to expand on the really important points that you made when you challenged her, because lots of people, obviously, when we think of the Holocaust, we think of just unparalleled evil in that we had the industrialized, systematic murder of the European Jewish population, 2/3, of course, of the Jewish population in Europe killed in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
And I think what people then think, well, this is like, it's so exceptional, if you like. When obviously, and obviously we've had other genocides, often in different forms, because it was just so industrialized the way it was done in the Shoah. But I suppose the point you're talking about is the lessons from history, because what is the point of study unless we learn the lessons from it, is that whilst dehumanization doesn't necessarily lead to such horror, it is the precondition of such.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because Germany was a very, very civilized country where Jews had lived for centuries without any restraints on their jobs or anything, which was the case, for instance, in the Tsarist Russia. The Jews weren't allowed to do anything. But in Germany, they had lived side and side, and actually they were a very integrated community. The majority of the German Jews saw themselves as Germans. And maybe, maybe they had a Jewish religion or Jewish, they were not anti-Germany in any way. And it was a complete, what the Nazis did was, there was high inflation, so they had to find someone to blame for it because it couldn't be their fault. And that is when the restrictions and the dehumanization of the Jews started. And within 2 years, it led to factories of death. So for Home Office to tell us that we mustn't argue the case against a Home Secretary using that kind of language and being so proud of it, I'm sorry. I'm willing to stand up.
So, as well, we've got obviously Suella Braverman and the Conservatives, but it goes much wider than that, does it? Because much of the British media talk about migrants and refugees in very dehumanizing ways. I'm going to read, this seems might maybe think quite an extreme example, but it was published in the Sun newspaper, which is one of the two biggest newspapers, I'm afraid to say, in the country, along with the Daily. Okay. It's read by millions of people. This was written by the then columnist Katie Hopkins. She since, to be fair, no longer has a mainstream platform, but she was a Sun columnist. And you may remember this yourself, and others may remember this, but I'm going to read it out anyway.
No, I've seen your blog on it.
Yeah, so I'll just
not read the Sun or the Daily Mail.
I'm not a prolific reader, but I do have to read it sometimes as part of my job, unfortunately. Yeah. But I'll just read it so people either watching or listening to this can just as an example. I don't want to put to you dehumanization of the media. So she says, rescue boats, I'd use gunships to stop migrants. What we need are gunships sending these boats back to their own country. You want to make a better life for yourself, then you had better get creative in Northern Africa. No, I don't care. Show me pictures of coffins. Show me bodies floating in water. Violins. And show me skinny people looking sad. I still don't care, because the next minute you'll show me pictures of young men at Calais spreading like norovirus on a cruise ship. And she calls them cockroaches. She compares them to cockroaches.
That's what the Nazis used.
Yeah.
Cockroaches. Yeah.
In terms of when you see these headlines, we can just, things like migrants take all new jobs in Britain. That was a front page. Britain's 40% surge in ethnic numbers. There's another one. 1 in 5 Muslim sympathy for jihadis. The Sun put that on their front page, then had to issue a correction several months later. But the damage is done, isn't it? The correction, I think, was on page 22.
Yeah. Oh, we're very sorry. Yeah. Was she not censored?
Well, not for that. In the end, she ended up losing her platform because she was on LBC and she called for a final solution for Muslims, which is again makes the point for you. She denied, I should say, that this was a call for genocide or repetition of the Holocaust, but nonetheless lost her job for talking about a final solution. Yeah, I mean, you look at this, don't you? You just think, where does this lead when you get so much dehumanization and how widespread it is?
It's not only that, it's just plain bloody stupid. You're going to get a reaction. You're going to get a reaction. If people feel they're threatened, they're going to act against the country. And then it becomes a vicious circle. That language is completely unacceptable. She should be in jail for using it. It is hate crime, and I'm appalled that nothing was done, really.
Well, in the end, I mean, as I say, she did end up losing her job eventually. But the point is that these are, the point I make is there's a general kind of attempt to make people feel that the problems in their lives, which are very real, like an NHS that isn't resourced properly, they're falling wages, that kind of thing, that you shouldn't blame politicians.
All these people that are using these resources, that's the only reason that the NHS is falling apart. Not that if we didn't have foreign people staffing the NHS, we wouldn't have anything. As bad as it is at the moment, it is depending on foreign workers to keep it going. And that's the truth of it. Yeah.
It was said after the Holocaust, never again. As a Holocaust survivor and whose family members were killed in the Holocaust, do you think that never again is taken seriously?
Well, actually, I have said, how did never again turn into again and again and again? And it's all very well to assume that these things happen in uncivilized parts of the world and there's nothing we can do, but we've bloody well got to stand up to it. We really do. I mean, when I was younger, I was very much a pacifist and, quite left wing. But as I've grown up, I mean, when this business in Ukraine started, I thought, this is a tyrant. This is another Stalin. And if we don't stand up to him, God knows. So, yeah, language is important. And, if you're going to be timid,
Just finally, as someone whose life was so profoundly touched by this just a horror which I think for most people just seems completely unimaginable, what do you urge people to do when they in terms of pushing back at this sort of dehumanization?
Well, you've got to react. You cannot shrug your shoulders and say, oh, well, it's someone else, it's somewhere else, because in the end, it will radicalize the groups that are being targeted, because, you can't expect any group of human beings to stand there and listen to these remarks without hate turning within themselves. Mm-hmm. And then you get a cycle of hate and fear. And so people, and at the moment, the Twitter, I've actually had to cover my screen because the Twitter, I believe it's reached over 20 million, whatever it's called. I'm not the greatest views. And I think the Suella Braverman has hit herself in the foot, and she's probably done the Labour Party a great favor.
I mean,
I'm not being partisan, but she's an idiot.
That's one of the more polite descriptions I could think of to think of Suella Braverman. But I mean, just very finally on that, I mean, do you think hopefully that the impact your video has had, your contribution has actually forced the government, because it's rare, let's be honest, because so much of the media is complicit, you don't get
Yeah,
this rhetoric
yeah.
stood up to very often. So you've actually stood up to them in a way that very few people have. Labour aren't doing it either. I think we can say that in a non-partisan way. So you've kind of filled a vacuum, haven't you? Because that's the point. It's you taking a stand that others haven't taken as loudly as they should be.
Well, others have, but let's say the right person at the right time. It got picked up, and it was as much the Home Office reaction. If they'd left it alone, all right, maybe a few hundred people would have reacted. Actually, I do have to tell you, there was one keyboard warrior who didn't join in the condemnation, but wrote that I'm just an old bag seeking my 15 minutes of fame. Well, it wasn't me, Gov. It was you lot that caused this. I believe they've blamed me for being a propagandist. You can read my words. I did not condemn any party. I did not get into the immigration issue. I just called her out for her language. And that's what I did. And if that's propaganda, I think the Home Office, who should not be the spokesperson for the Home Secretary or any politician, they are supposed to be neutral. And I'm sure that she has given them hell, and they've done it to keep her quiet. But, it's a disgrace. And I hope Rishi Sunak realizes that perhaps she is not the person that should be the Home Secretary, because she's created a hell of a lot of hate for them. And sorry if I'm being political.
No, I mean, everything is political, and this certainly is. I just want to finish up just by reading some of the comments people are making. David Barata says, "Thank you for speaking up, Joan. You're great." People saying Joan for PM. More of that from wonderful people like Joan, please. The lady is as sharp as a scalpel. We have your back, Joan. Total respect to Joan Salter, MBE, inspirational. Much love and strength to Joan. I utterly love Joan. Tell it like it is, straight to the point. Yeah, as you can see, just lots and lots and lots of love for you there. So yeah, and someone says, "I'm not being partisan, but she's an idiot. Made my day." Well said. Joan, it's been such an honor to have you. You've been an absolute superstar. You are a superstar. You've literally been watched by millions of people, and right at this second, thousands of people are watching that video over and over again for the first time. Thank you for your courage, your leadership, for telling it like it is, and it's been such an honor to have you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to everyone. Yeah.
And also, people look up Freedom from Torture. They've released a video, and they're obviously Home Office after them, and they're brilliant. Do support Freedom from Torture, and they're brilliant.
Yeah. And yes, I have worked with them, and I've spoken to their survivors, and I am aware that they are put in limbo for years until a decision is made. Really? And in the end, once they are processed, 77% of them are accepted as qualifying as refugees.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely. And those facts are missing from this discussion often, so I'm glad you've raised them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Joan, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and thanks for the being inspiring and eloquent. Take care. Thinking about.
Thank you very much.